on?
You know, we're all here talking about testing anxiety, and all of us have had experience with it one way or another. It might be that you've experienced it yourself. It could be that you have a child who struggles with it. On a certain level, everyone deals with it, some more severe than others. Like Holly was talking about, you know, sometimes you get up and leave in the middle of an exam. I remember one time not being prepared for a test, not even being aware that the test was happening in college. And I walked into the room and the teacher was passing out the test. It had testing all over that room. And I remember just looking at that teacher, looking at the class, and I just turned around and walked right out. Of course, I was able to redo that test later, and it was all fine. Everything turned out well. It was adolescent psychology. But there's a lot of ways to handle that, and being prepared ahead of time is absolutely essential. If you can do one thing for yourself academically or for your child is do not procrastinate. Do not procrastinate. There's a lot of ways to handle that. Academically, for elementary school children, being able to give them the basics that they need heads off issues with falling behind in reading and math. Working on reading daily is very, very important. Even if the teacher doesn't assign that, most teachers will assign it around 20 minutes a night for reading. Make that purposeful attention time for your child. Read with them. If you're not reading aloud with them, have them read aloud to you. Talk about what's going on in the story. Talk about the characters and the setting. Stop and talk about what's going to happen next in the story. What do you think is going to happen? Talk about, were your predictions true? What happened in the long run? Talking over what you're reading is really, really important with your child. Modeling for them, reading aloud with them. Read one page, your child reads another. When they're very confident, you won't have to do that. Maybe it's that you read the passage silently to yourself when your child's at school, and maybe, you know, they'll read later, and then you can talk about it. But do make a point to talk about what's going on in the stories that you're reading with your child. That will keep their comprehension on level or even ahead. And that's the main goal, right? Let's get ahead and stay ahead. As far as not procrastinating academically with math, making sure that your child has the basic facts memorized is essential. Practice those basic facts nightly like you do with reading. That is one of the biggest factors for children falling behind in math. Please make sure you are working on the basic facts with your child every single night. Procrastinating on something like that or expecting it to happen just through school, it just doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen. And so you just have to make sure that you're doing that at home. Heading off spelling tests in elementary school is another thing that you can cut a lot of stress by working with your child nightly. Just group up those words or talk about, you know, some parents will talk about them in the car. Have the child spell aloud while you're driving to HEB. You know, just whatever the case may be. Work on these things a little bit every day, and that cuts a lot of the stress. And then when you pair that preparation with anxiety-cutting techniques, then your child is in charge of the testing situation. Another thing that you can do at home is taking steps to cut anxiety in the home in general. Sometimes, you know, we fall into that rat race where we go to work, come home, either you're making a super fast meal, you know, freezer food, or you're stopping by and grabbing fast food on the way home, and the studies have shown that our country's suffering. We've got rise in diabetes, we've got rises in heart disease. We need to be eating fresh, whole foods as often as possible, and that goes a long way to cutting stress and anxiety in general. in our bodies, in our emotions, spiritually, physically. It makes a big difference to eat the right foods. And one way to head off stress with that is when you do have your day off, spend some time as a family designing a menu for the next week. Get it down on paper what you're going to be having for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. It cuts stress tremendously, and you will be more in charge of what ingredients you're cooking with, and more in charge of managing the stress level when you've just got, if you work 10-hour shift, you can't come home and spend an hour and a half cooking dinner after work. You just cannot do it, and that creates a level of stress on its own. So one thing we recently did is we took the time on my day off. We sat there and we chopped up the vegetables that were able to be chopped up, and in preparation for the meals for the next 3 days, let's chop up the onions. That's one that can handle staying cut for a few days. Chop up the vegetables you need for a stir fry. Have that all ready so that it's just ready to throw in the pan. Have your rice pre-cooked. You can do all those things to be able to put together a quick and easy meal that's going to be beneficial for your family. And that will cut stress on those nights where your child remembers that, oh, I have a math test tomorrow and I have 20 problems that I need to work on tonight. And you realize, oh, we're going to spend 2 hours on homework tonight, and I didn't really know that, and I'm making lasagna. Okay. So just make sure you plan ahead for these meals that can keep your family healthy and cut anxiety in your household. If you're the person that stresses because they're always running late, plan more time in the mornings, and that'll cut stress before you and your child go to school. You've really got to head these kind of things off, because if your child does have a test that day, you do not want to have the sort of event where mom's running around crazy looking for her keys in the morning before the test. So just as you're going through your day, find ways to head off the things that normally cause stress. Another way to really help your child academically is taking time to really talk to your child about what triggers stress in their lives. Talk to them. Find out what it is that's causing that problem. Find out if there's anything that needs to be done differently at home that can help head that off. For example, I had a student whose mom really helped him with writing anxiety. She talked to the teacher. There was a daily writing prompt, and he would freeze up every morning and have meltdowns, get sent to the principal's office because of the writing. And she got the prompts ahead of time. Teachers are very willing to work with you on helping children learn and cutting anxiety. It helps them. It helps the child. They're willing to work with you. So talk to the classroom teacher and about ways to help your child. So this teacher gave the mom a writing prompt ahead of time, and so the night before, she would go through and talk with him about, okay, tomorrow's writing prompt is, what did you have for dinner tonight? And so they would talk about that, and they would even brainstorm words that would be something that he could use. He could even write down some adjectives that would help him in explaining what they had for dinner, and he could take that to his classroom and use that during his writing time. So she would help him with the brainstorming part at home. There are things you can do to help your child academically, and if you partner with your classroom teacher, that's going to go a long way toward cutting academic stress in general. But of course, testing anxiety, because if you've planned ahead, you've done a lot to help your child avoid testing anxiety.